A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 202nd episode of the Together for Education webinar brought to you by Notebook. As we completed our 200th episode with enormous love and support from you all, we took some pause to sit, think, and prepare ourselves even better for the much awaited season 2 of this very prestigious webinar series. It was a warm summer evening back in 2020 when we here at Notebook decided to launch a platform for the educators to connect meaningfully on discussing problems they were facing with the rising need of digital education and online learning and arrive at common solutions. Little did we know that day about this platform growing magnificently big, both vertically and horizontally. We thank you all once again for supporting us and would look forward to your gracious presence in all our upcoming episodes. We have discussed extremely vibrant topics here, like digital learning, NEP and assessment, extracurricular topics like sports and theatre, topics like school finance and management, and even evolved topics like mental health. Today, we have this topic, the boiling frog story. Referring to the boiling frog experiment, we put a frog into a vessel filled with water and start heating the water. As the temperature of the water begins to rise, the frog adjusts its body temperature accordingly. The frog keeps adjusting its body temperature with the increasing temperature of the water. Just when the water is about to reach boiling point, the frog can't adjust anymore. At this point, the frog decides to jump out. The frog tries to jump, but it is unable to do so because it has lost all its strength in adjusting with the rising water temperature. Very soon, the frog dies. What killed the frog? Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. I know many of us will see the boiling water, but the truth about what killed the frog was its own inability to decide when to jump out. In the pursuit of making our children tolerant, we often miss out on this point. Child abuse, bullying, or any difficult situation beyond explanation, how do we teach our little ones the moral of the story? Let's hear from the experts today. Our first speaker on this topic is Mr. Burrett. Mr. Burrett retired as the Deputy Headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. Mr. Burrett served the Doon School as Housemaster, Head of Department, Dean of Activities, Dean of Student Welfare, Deputy Headmaster, Second Master, and Acting Headmaster. With great distinction, he also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. Mr. Burrett qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist. And we here at Notebook are privileged to have Mr. Burrett as our senior advisor. So, thank you so much for being here today. A very good evening, and over to you, please.
Thank you, Gauri. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that introduction, and a very good evening to everyone at Notebook Calcutta, as well as the esteemed panelists on today's panel, and also our guests who have tuned in. As Gauri so correctly mentioned in her introduction, the boiling frog syndrome can be summarized briefly into, our comfort zone problems. When we are used to doing certain things in a certain way, we get used to that way, and getting out of our comfort zones sometimes is the biggest problem, we have. Since the frog is only slightly uncomfortable with its warm surrounding, it keeps adjusting. People are tolerant, people adjust, making ourselves believe that it's only a gradual change that we can adjust to. Only when the change starts accelerating towards the end, when the water is boiling, he then discovers that it's time to jump out. But in many cases, it may be too late. And that's the problem. The syndrome underscores how gradually change can result in catastrophic consequences. If we fail to realize the danger is looming, the menace intensifies, and we are trapped. The problem of the boiling frog is very common in our daily lives and in our institutions around us. For example, when we see our own family members every day, we don't notice that they are putting on weight. Or when we see our blood sugar rise, in subsequent blood tests, it doesn't alarm us. And years go past with our putting on weight, our blood sugar rising, our lifestyle catches up on us. And then 10 to 15 years down the line, wow, suddenly we're declared diabetic. And suddenly somebody from outside comes home and says, hey, have you noticed you put on weight? And we haven't noticed because we do not notice small changes. We notice large changes. So it takes an outsider to tell us that we have put on weight, which we haven't realized. And this is the boiling frog syndrome. Even in evolution, the very concept of survival of the fittest depends on the boiling frog syndrome, where those who do not notice and respond to gradual changes in the environment are first to die. Yet those trivial changes among species become the cause for their survival, and over millions of years have resulted in the evolution of chimpanzees into Homo sapiens. Let's take the business world, for example. The stock market collapse of 2009 to 11, the Lehman Brothers and what they did. Most economists, and these people from Harvard Business School, they must have seen what was happening. They must have known what was around the corner, but no one did anything. And suddenly, millions of people lost their life savings because of bankruptcy. People who had put money into these banks suddenly lost it. Businesses that fail to acknowledge and innovate, and fail to acknowledge what their competitors are doing, they die an actual death. They say, what happened to Kodak films? What happened to digital cameras? What happened to the Atlas? Because we have Google Maps now. What happened to BlackBerry? Very imperceptibly, BlackBerry that was, it was the only phone that we were aspiring to get. What are these? Where are they now? And very soon, there won't be motor cars that run on fuel. The point is that in similar connection to the boiling frog syndrome is made in favor of long-term value investing over short-term trading. If you hear the comments by Warren Buffett and people like him, it is slow long-term savings that are better in the long run than quick knee-jerk going in for high-risk venture. And so therefore, even they say, think about gazelle. Lion creeps up slowly on him. He doesn't see it. He sees it only when it's too late, when the lion is ready to leap on him. Think about, I just want to talk about things like abusive relationships at home. When people put up with someone who dominates you, people accept it and people live with this for years and years. It is only when things go out of control, when we have let things slip. Again, it's a tolerance syndrome. It's a syndrome of, the comfort zone. We suddenly realize that we are in an abusive relationship and then we want to pull out of it. Look at schools, for example. Schools are an excellent way of studying the boiling frog syndrome. Many of our legacy schools have let things slip over the years. They have run on momentum, they've run on inertia, they've run on tradition, they've run because alumni keeps them going, but they don't see the world outside changing. And they are blind to it because they live in this comfort zone, this cocoon of comfort and happiness, till it's too late. And it's only institutions that have realized in time that there is need to change that survive. And the other institutions die. And this is what happens in businesses too. It's in everything that you do. Even let's bring education down to the class. We notice kids who are indisciplined or who are weak in their studies when they get to class 10 or class 12. But what happened in the earlier days? If we nip things in the bud, if we catch them early, if we catch disciplinary issues, badly behaved children, or learning, people with learning disabilities early, we can do something about it. We let it slip. We let it slip for years and years. And then when the problem is compounded and becomes too large to handle, we suddenly, jump out of the boiling water. What do? This kid is weak. This kid is got a serious problem of behavior. So I think it's important to catch them young. I want to end with a little bit of advice that I was reading about. How do you tackle this, the boiling frog syndrome? I think the best thing is to break out of one's routine. I think once we get into a routine, we get into a rut. We get into doing things the same way as we did yesterday and years before. I think when we get out of the rut and do something differently, getting out of the day-to-day routine, then we reflect on our lives by sitting, meditating, taking a walk through a forest. Sometimes these things hit you. So I think getting out of your routine is one. Second is, I would advise to keep a personal journal. When you keep a personal journal, when you write down, a lot of ideas that wouldn't have occurred to you suddenly come to mind. And I often keep a journal when I have to make a decision, put the positives and negatives. So I think keeping a journal is something very, very important, because it's another way of getting aware of what the problem is. Reading books. I think sometimes when you read a book, you get an external view on people who are facing the same problem as you. It's help from outside. We gain additional mental models, and this can also help our lives. Also, keeping a risk registry. Sometimes we need to look at the pros and cons of why we are living the way we are living. We need to know what is the risk, who are the potential risk owners, and who are the potential risk responders. And lastly, I think it's important to have a circle of friends so that we get an external view of what's happening in our lives. Good friends are able to feed back to us, mirror to us, things about us that we can't see in ourselves, And so sometimes good advice comes to us from friends, and they are the ones who tell us if the water is getting hot, water is boiling, let's jump out. So I think with that, Gagori, I look forward to hearing the views of Achin and our panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for those wonderful deliberations. The concept of risk registry was truly awesome. Thank you, sir. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker on this topic is Mr. Achin Bhattacharyya, founder Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. Achin is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales, a fellow of the ICAI, a member of CP Australia and CP Ireland, a member of CIMA UK. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award, an avid reader and a passionate traveler. Achin has keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He's a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce, and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He's also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, a very good evening, and over to you, please.
Good evening, everyone. Gabri, am I audible?
Absolutely.
I once again welcome all of you to today's session. It's a wonderful topic, and I'll try to take a more holistic perspective. Since 1850, global average temperatures have risen by 1 degree Celsius. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but it is. And why so? 1 degree is an average. Many places have already got much warmer than that. Some places in the Arctic, temperatures have risen by more than 4 degrees. If global average temperature increases by 1 more degree, the coldest nights in the Arctic might get 10 degrees warmer. The warmest days in Mumbai might get 5 degrees hotter. So we all agree that the world is getting dangerously hot. But have most of us noticed this incredibly bad weather of late? Not fully. Going by research data, which demonstrates a terrifying adaptability of 21st century human beings in the face of unprecedented climate change. It's as if we are normalizing the temperatures and not realizing how truly dangerous things are becoming. Hence this famous analogy, one that's both fitting and frightening, the boiling frog effect. According to renowned climate scientist Francis Murray of University of California, this is a classic example of true boiling frog effect. People seem to be getting used to changes that they would rather prefer to avoid. But just because they're not talking about it doesn't mean it's not making them worse off. So Murray and her team sampled over more than 2 billion geolocated tweets between March 2014 and November 2016, measuring the sentiment in public posts about weather and cross-referencing them with localized temperature and comparing them against a baseline reference of weather data from 1981 to 1990. They are trying to basically correlate and see how people are reacting to changes. So they're looking for those data that in localized weather conditions, if there are significant changes, how do people perceive it? What the team found was that people were more generally or more likely to tweet about weather if it is unusual for the season or for the region where they lived. For example, warm conditions in winter, cool temperatures in summer, but this unsurprising tendency also depends on past experience. Because when do we react? Only when we compare with what we expect. Now, in terms of people's memories of weather in recent years, and in a world that's slowly getting hotter all the time, we are actually noticing this extreme weather less, much in a sense like that faithful frog. Temperatures initially considered remarkable are rapidly becoming normal with repeated exposure over roughly a 5-year time scale. Now, the danger is this, that while climate change is a shocking, extreme thing, our experience of the weather it produces is subjective. And our ability to evaluate normal weather looks to be based on an imagined reference point of what the weather was like between 2 to 8 years ago. That's because the researchers say people are all the time getting used to harsh, unusual weather without even realizing it. So that's a huge risk. So hence this particular syndrome, of course, is an unusual name for a not so unusual concept. It's basically a metaphor used to describe how gradual changes can sometimes go unnoticed until it's too late. And not only from an individual perspective, we can also describe how organizations, institutions, communities, or even entire societies can slowly decline over time without anyone really noticing. It happens when people become either too complacent or fail to pay attention to the gradual changes happening around them. Eventually, the situation reaches a crucial point and it's much harder to recover because initial corrective action was not taken. This can also happen to businesses, as Burrett was referring to a few cases when they fail to keep up with changing market conditions. For instance, they might be doing remarkably well in a particular geography, but if they become too complacent and don't adapt to changes be it in terms of new innovations, new market players coming in, new disruptions, they are eventually bound to fall behind. And by the time they realize that, yes, they do need to jump out and do something new, innovative, it's too late. Too late to recover. Now, there are classic cases that we've seen around the world. Be it brands like, for instance, outsourcing giant Carolian, Blockbuster, Nokia, Sears, closer home Hindustan Motors, Kingfisher Airlines, or maybe again globally Polaroid, who failed to adapt to changing market conditions and new competitors. Now, again, complacency, failure to notice changes, and using all their strength to adjust with a belief that will somehow sail through. Now, the other aspect is that today, if you look at this particular syndrome, in the context of what the entire world went through during the pandemic for more than 2 years, people around the world, for instance, something as simple as shopping behavior, dramatically changed their shopping behavior when the pandemic initially started. Faced with new uncertainty, of course, online shopping, no contact shopping, trying to stock up basic household items. Because, of course, the future is unknown, uncertain. The buying frenzy led to shortages, even though in most cases, there would have been enough to go around if people only purchased what they needed. And again, I'm talking of a global phenomenon. It happened. Again, so there's a very interesting study which was led by University of Sydney with regard to reactive behavior like this. And the study says it isn't unusual, but a common way to handle unexpected uncertainty. In fact, unexpected uncertainty is such a powerful motivator for change that it often prompts us to adjust our behavior, even when it's not good for us. We fully know that. For instance, when people experience an unexpected change in the environment, they start looking for ways to reduce that uncertainty. They can change their behavior and decision-making strategies because the objective is to try and find a way to somehow regain some sense of control. Now, surprisingly, the study found that unexpected uncertainty caused people to change their behavior, even when they would have been better off sticking to an old strategy. The study, which was recently published, showed that whether expected or unexpected, how people are reacting to changes. For instance, a small example like a city worker who knows their morning commute takes anywhere between, say, 30 to 50 minutes, wouldn't be surprised by a 50-minute trip. On the other hand, his country cousin would be very surprised if their predictable 30-minute trip suddenly took 50 minutes. Now, to test how people respond to unexpected change, researchers tasked study participants with selling a pair of objects to one of the two subjects. And the objective was very simple, to see how they react. And what they perceived initially was that the moment the strategy was changed, they saw initially a group of 35 participants who were familiarized with the task and quickly learned one strategy. But the moment midway through the experiment, the pattern was changed. So they started looking for new ways to somehow complete the task. Old way was good enough. The trick was that they needed to stick to the strategy, but they wanted to change. Similarly, if we look at the pandemic and our different responses to it, it's a large-scale example of unexpected uncertainty. Everything changed very suddenly at the start of the pandemic. People working from home, changing how we shop, changing how we socialize. The rules we were living by beforehand no longer applied. And there was no clear answer about when or how the pandemic will end. So people tried all sorts of things to somehow regain control. Panic shopping to reduce this new uncertainty, return to normal. But as we have seen, not all of these reactive strategies were good in the long run. So a classic example of this particular syndrome. While unexpected uncertainty led to dramatic responses, research has shown that expected uncertainty, which is the other part of the syndrome, when gradually the temperature rises, expected uncertainty had the opposite effect, completely opposite effect. Participants' behavior in the particular experiments, 35 participants, didn't change dramatically, even though the uncertainty eventually reached the same level as in the first experiment. Because when it is introduced gradually, people were able to maintain their old strategies. They never felt that they're losing control. They always felt that they were in control. Although it is not true, but they always felt that they're in control. When change is slow and barely noticeable, there's no sudden prompt to change our behavior. And hence, we hold on to old behaviors. So these are a few things that I wanted to share. I thank all of you for giving me a very patient hearing. We have a great panel here today of esteemed educators with decades of experience. I look forward to hear from them, their perspective on this very important and interesting topic. Over to you, Gauri.
Thank you so much, Achin, for those wonderful deliberations. Well, ladies and gentlemen, to discuss this topic, we do have a wonderful panel lined up for you today. But before we start with the panel discussion, a little bit about us here at Notebook. We at Notebook are an edtech platform that creates short videos pertaining to the school curriculum, which means that every topic from every subject of the school syllabus has been converted into a series of short videos that can be used in two different cases. One is when you as a teacher are starting out a topic in your classroom, you can play one of these videos as a method of visually introducing the topic to your students. These videos are just 6 to 10 minutes in duration and take up very little of your class time while offering the right kind of material to students to generate curiosity and excitement. The second is when the student is studying at home months later. They have access to the same videos on their personal devices, be it a laptop or a smartphone. They can watch the videos over and over again until they get a very clear understanding of the topic that you have taught. What I'm going to do now is play you a mashup of notebook videos so that you know what they exactly look like.
Hello students, welcome to Notebook. Our salvation can come only through the farmers. Mahatma Gandhi, the beloved father of the nation, declared at the opening of the Benares Hindu University in 1916. This was Gandhi's first notable public appearance after his return to India in 1915.
कवि ने इस संघर्षपूर्ण मार्ग को ही अग्निपथ की संज्ञा प्रदान की है। वह अपनी कविता के माध्यम से मानव मात्र को संघर्षशील बने रहने की प्रेरणा देते हैं। कवि बताते हैं कि जीवन में सुख और आराम प्राप्त करने के लिए अपना कर्तव्य नहीं छोड़ना चाहिए।
Born in a village in Jharkhand, Suryamani used to be fond of the forest from a very early age. As a little girl, used to take the forest path to school, other than the direct road. Her family earned its livelihood by collecting leaves and herbs from the forest and selling them in the nearby market.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a small part of some of our videos as you just now saw. We have today connected with over 3,500 schools and have had millions of students and teachers benefit from our videos. If you head over to our website, www.notebook.school, you would find such videos at your disposal. If you want Notebook in your schools, please get in touch with our sales team at wake@notebook.school. With that, it is now time to introduce the wonderful panelists that we have with us today. We have with us today Dr. Vidhukesh Vimal sir, Principal, DPS Patna East. Dr. Vidhukesh has had a distinguished academic career with a PhD and an MPhil from the University of Delhi, a B.Ed from the Faculty of Education, Jamia Millia Islamia University, New Delhi. He has an international postgraduate certificate from University College London and a certificate course in Student Residential Care Australia. He also has a certificate in school management and leadership from Harvard Business and Harvard Graduate School of Education and is a certified special educator from Drishti, Mumbai. During his entire career span, he has been the head of the Assam Valley School, housemaster of the Jaipur House at the Doon School, Dehradun. Prior to that, he had also been a part of Mayo College and had begun his career as a teacher at St. Francis de Sales, Delhi. An ardent photographer and a theatre enthusiast, Dr. Vimal's expression almost always find their source in his profound love for poetry. A prolific reader, a book of verses, whether in English, Hindi, or Urdu, remain his constant companion. Sir, a very good evening and welcome to the panel once again.
Thank you, Gauri. Thank you.
Next, we have with us Dr. Rashmi Singh, Principal, Poddar Brio International School, Badlapur, Maharashtra. Ma'am holds a master's degree in physics with B.Ed and started her career as A-level and IGCSE faculty in RIMS International School and Junior College in Juhu. She was shortlisted for a teacher exchange program in the US. Students have secured world toppers rank in the subject of physics under her guidance for A-level. She was trainer in international curriculum and had headed the physics department of Poddar International School located in Santa Cruz as well. Ma'am, a very, very good evening and welcome to the panel.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. We also have with us Mrs. Sapna Sankla, Principal, RMK Residential Senior Secondary School, Chennai. Ma'am holds a Bachelor of Science in Physics, Math, Computer Science, Masters in English, Masters in Philosophy, Postgraduate Diploma in Computer Applications, and currently pursuing PhD. She's a Google certified trainer from Google, conducts induction program for school administrators and managers of newly affiliated CBSE schools on behalf of Center of Excellence, Chennai. Ma'am has won the Best Teacher Award 2014 by Lions Club International, Chennai District, Best Speaker Award 2018 by AMN Global Group, Principal Par Excellence Award 2020, to name only a few. She has also quite a few publications to her name. Ma'am, a very, very good evening and welcome to the panel once again.
Thank you.
We also have with us Dr. Pramod Mahajan, sir, Principal and School Director, Sharjah Indian School, Sharjah, UAE. Sir holds an honorary PhD in Metaphysics, MSc in Physics, MA in Education, BA in Creativity, MBA in Training and Development. Dr. Mahajan is a highly experienced and accomplished educator with over 34 years of experience in teaching and 16 years of experience as a principal. Prior to this current role, he has held leadership positions in various prestigious schools, including Chamasti International School, Hyderabad, GEMS Public School, Lodha World School in Mumbai, Poddar International School in Kalyan, Arya Cambridge International School in Thane, and Birla School in Mumbai. He has won numerous awards and accolades for his contribution to education at both national and international levels. Dr. Mahajan is an active member of various educational organizations and community groups. He's a core member of the Community Volunteers Team, Education Wing, Office of Consul General, CGI, India, Dubai, UAE, and the Working Group of Education Wing of the Office of Ambassador, the Embassy of India, Abu Dhabi, UAE. He is also one of the Board of Directors of Principal Council of Sharjah Private Education Authority, Government of Sharjah, and the former Secretary of the Principal Executive Council of Sharjah Private Education Authority, Government of Sharjah. Sir, a very, very good evening and welcome to the panel once again.
Thank you, and it's my pleasure to be on the panel.
Thank you so much, all my beautiful, beautiful panelists. Can I please start with Vidhukesh, Vimal, sir? Sir, your views on the topic, please.
Thank you very much, Kagori. And I guess being an opening batsman, Mr. Burrett and Achin has already set the tone for us, and I'm the down number one batsman. I'll say first down batsman. It's a very interesting topic, and I personally feel if we can narrow down to one aspect of an individual's personality, that is ability to take a decision. And why we take such decisions, when to take that particular decision. This match, and if I say matching with your instincts, with the context in which you are taking that decision, the time and the place. And individuals, if you look at around, whether the teachers, those who work in a school or organizations for anywhere else, or any other employees, if you look at them, sometimes they compromise on their social emotional well-being, and they keep working, they keep doing that thing, they keep suffering on a daily basis, and they don't know that when to leave, what to do. And I personally feel that and you get it, just you feel that's part and parcel of the culture, and some fine day everything will be fine. And if you see, at the end of the day, those teachers, those individuals, or those employees, their some total gain from that experience of working in an institution is nothing but frustration. When they look back in retrospect, they don't have appreciation for that experience. And that's why I personally feel that individuals must take a call when to leave exactly at what point, so that when you look back, your time remains relevant to you. Your time remains, kind of meaningful to you. Because what happens when you adjust a little too much with that place, that experience, all the individuals, people, those who are working around you, that also kind of, that get into the cell where you are unable to relate with them. And somehow your overall experience is something which you don't want. If you go to the society, if I take you from the school thing to society, look at the governance. And I have seen different parts of the country, and I'm at present working in Bihar. If I compare this state and compare this state with other places, what exactly happened with Bihar? When other states were growing in 1990s or say mid 80s, and they were kind of moving ahead, thinking about it, somehow this state has gone to a shell and kind of a political, I'll say, setup where the caste becomes too important, where your identity or as based on that becomes so important that you have not kind of, mindful about the governance, the quality of governance, the basic facilities. And somehow you got used to of that. And that's why one, I'll say, decent rain is good enough, kind of to disrupt life. Otherwise, rain means, you happiness. Rain means lots of, a smile on your face. But when you look at that way, but if you see today, 2023, I left Bihar in 1997. After 25 years back, I'm back. So when I see these 25 years, what exactly happened? The whole community got used to a bad governance. And the impact of that bad governance is now reflected in the individual's choices. Accountability and integrity is under question. If people will come and tell you that I will come tomorrow at 9 o'clock, believe me, that person is going to come at 9 o'clock. So when I say this, what happens? When you accept something as a society, the governance, you accept it at that point, and you don't decide, no, I'm not going to accept this particular governance. I'm going to change my political choices. I'm going to change my certain things certain way. Then it impacts your bigger community in a bigger way. And that's why I said in the beginning that in decision-making ability of an individual and decision-making ability of society is so important. And the whole frog and I'll say the boiling water concept, the syndrome talks about that ability. But now bigger question is why we fail to do so. Why we do not take decisions at that time. Number one, for individuals, I think Achin talked about that, but our fear of uncertainty. Because when we are fearful, we do not know what will happen. And as a middle class individual, you don't have that courage to face that uncertainty. And so you said, in my introduction that, sir has an interest in, poetry. So I would like to quote, say, Shayar, and it says, कि उस पार है उम्मीद और उजास की एक पूरी दुनिया, अंधेरा तो सिर्फ देहरी पर है. Deहरी is the doorstep. But we fail to take that one step to cross that thing, because that darkness doesn't allow us, because there's a bright future that side. But as an individual, as a individual, we don't have that courage. If we come to the society as a collective, say, group, what exactly happens? Our individual, we are part of a group, but somehow our individual choices are kind of our intent, the kind of benefits we want to gain out of situation, that doesn't allow us to move, and we think it's happening with someone else. And that's why I say, it's great to see someone getting fried in the oven. No, that person getting chicken, it's okay, it's not happening with me, it's happening with someone else. Fine. As a society, we keep seeing that. And that's why we think nothing is going to happen with me. But believe me, if it is happening with A, it will happen with B someday. And that's why we need to always think about it, the consequence in sum total about how the society is going to get impacted. And if we are able to identify these moments, and I sum up with the cricket, because I'm a cricket fan, I'll say the biggest I would say, toughest job for a cricket captain, especially in test matches, when to declare. If you decide that this is the time to declare, that ability, and that's why, when think about it, I'll give you 2011 World Cup example. Dhoni's one decision has given us a World Cup, and the decision was he will go ahead of Yuvraj Singh. That one basic decision ensured that, I'll go and I'll fight. I'll go and I'll fight. So my understanding of this whole topic is that this topic talks about individuals' capacity to take decision. It also talks about individuals' limitation, because the surrounding is that limitation. And also talks about our mindfulness and our awareness. And your companion on this journey are two very important things: your mindfulness, your ability to observe what's exactly happening around me, and also your ability to reflect. And that's why it's very, very important that on a daily basis, we take some time out from our schedule and reflect where we are heading. How was my day? What I exactly did? What went right? How could I have made a better day? If we are doing and thinking on that line, I'm pretty sure we can save ourselves and our community and our organizations from the whole syndrome. And as someone rightly said, many times what happens, you see the river getting, kind of in two different directions, but from the place where you see the rivers getting to different directions, river doesn't split there. The split has happened way back, 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, maybe 5 kilometers back. The same exactly happens with societies, the organizations, and the places. If you're not mindful of these things since the beginning, someday you will see that split, and then you are like a frog who cannot jump out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure to have you in the panel. Thank you so much for your wonderful, wonderful deliberations. I would next come to Pramod Mahajan, sir. If you can please start. Good evening, sir.
Sure. Good evening. Yes, the boiling frog. The ultimate outcome and learning outcome, if you apply in the field of education, the question arises whether we are driving the change or we are driven by the change. You take the case of the frog. Frog is not driving the change, getting driven by the change. Whatever with the rise in temperature, is adopting that, means accepting the change, but not destroying the discomfort. So if the frog has to drive the change instead of getting driven the change, has to jump, but could not jump because getting driven by the change. In the field of education, also the same thing. Are we driving the change or getting driven by the change? If we are driving the change, we will ensure that our learners will not be techno-addict, but they will be embracing the technology. If we are driving the change, we will ensure that the learners are exploring the machine instead of becoming a machine. So the question arises whether we are driving the change. The outcome of that boiling frog is one has to drive the change instead of getting driven the change. Another perspective of being a student of physics, I wanted to analyze that thing, a mindset. Whether you have a fixed mindset, whether you have a growth mindset, or you have a mixed mindset. The fixed mindset is okay, whatever it is mean for us. Another thing is growth mindset. See, always having growth mindset is also sometimes dangerous. Always taking the risk is also not good. So that frog was in a fixed mindset. And ultimately, when the temperature increases, he comes into the drastically enhanced growth mindset, and then required that sort of energy which has already been invested in several attempts and several trials, and could not do that thing. So that frog should have been having the mixed mindset. So when the discomfort is keep on increasing, he should have thought about, yes, there is a point where I have to jump, and I have to jump with full energy. So again, another outcome in the field of education, if we have to deal with that in the field of schooling process, one should be out of the fixed mindset, but when to have the growth mindset and when to have a mixed mindset, again depends on whether you are driving the change or you get driven by the change. If in the poetic form, if we have to say now, there is a poem given by my previous panelist. यूं ही नहीं गिरते सफलता के फल झोली में, प्रयासों की शाख को तो दोस्तों झंझोरना होगा, कुछ नहीं होगा अंधेरों को बुरा कहने से, अपने हिस्से का दिया तो खुद ही जलाना होगा, अपने हिस्से का दिया तो खुद ही जलाना होगा. So who will burn that lamp? Who will take that high jump? Who will take that high jump? It's depending on your effort, and your effort determines your competencies, your skill, your innovation, your creativity, and your risk taking. These are all 21st century skills. So for the namesake of 21st century skill, it is not advisable. How quickly you are applying in your daily life, that is important. The frog was a master of jumping, but could not apply the known and expertise of its own when the situation occurs, when the tough situation occurs. So according to me, if we analyze, he has a better IQ. He has a good EQ also, emotional quotient, because, emotionally, okay, whatever with the temperature, I have a capacity of changing the density of my skin and doing that thing. But adversity quotient was less. Jumping high during the tough situation, and that too with the smiling face. So the the outcome is what? In spite of you are having IQ or EQ or SQ, you have to ensure that you have SQ, you have AQ, adversity quotient. Again, to enhance the adversity quotient, to jump or to do your best during the tough situation with the smiling face, depends on which sort of mindset you have, whether the fixed mindset, whether the growth mindset, or you should have the mixed mindset. Now, there was discussion about decision making. So if we consider the decision making, decisions, we cannot all of a sudden decide. For decision making, the well-known resource says you should have factual realities. What's the fact is? The fact is temperature of the water is keep on increasing. Then you should have a feasible aspects. What is the feasibility? Still I can survive. So that is the feasibility. The third one is, while deciding, flexible. You should have flexible, but not that much flexible, which will go against your feasibility and against your factual aspects. So factual, feasible, flexible, and then final is actionable. You have to take the action if the things are going against your flexibility. In the teaching learning process also, we have to take the action. They do say, do it, delegate it. Still, if it is not working, dump it. So the frog has not dumped. He keep on doing and he keep on delegating. So as an edu leader, one has to understand that thing. If the things are going against your flexibility, you have to take the action. That time may be the drastic action. Either do it or dump it. Another theory which comes to my mind, that is 3P. Patience. Patience up to what extent? One should have passionate, one should have patience, but at the same time, you should have a practice of going against your passion. going against your profession at time. So that practice makes you perfect. And that practice gives you peace. The third P is peace. But if the peace doesn't mean that always you are in well-being, as it's a worldwide established fact, the army and the weapons are needed to ensure the peace. What does it mean? Peace doesn't mean the well-being. Peace doesn't mean the wellness. Peace means, yes, ready to attack. And then ready to attack means switch to unknown. The frog could not switch to the unknown. He was within that known periphery. So in the field of education also, you have passion, you have practice, you should ensure the peace, you should ensure the well-being, you should ensure the wellness. But if the engagement is not happening, if the attainment is not happening, if the progress is not happening, you have to switch to the unknown. That's why my suggestion to the teacher, you are no more sage on a stage. You are no more guide on a side. You are no more felicitator. Switch your role and become a scaffolder. So that is required. That scaffolding was missing within that frog. Another one theory which comes to my mind is nurturing the growth mindset. That says, accept the change. What sort of change? Which gives you discomfort also. So the frog was accepting the change, accepting the discomfort. But at the same time, when you are accepting the discomfort, find out the source of discomfort. He could not find out the source of discomfort. Because if we could find out the source of discomfort, then we will be choose to be optimistic. See, it's very easy to say be positive and be optimistic. When you will be optimistic? When you will be optimistic? If at all you are finding out what are the source of discomfort which is disturbing you. You should be optimistic, but not up to that level that, okay, you get disturbed, you get stressed, you get nervous, and then you say, still I am optimistic. So what is the meaning of that? Choose to optimistic ways. And finally, for what you should be optimistic, for what you should be positive, to destroy the discomfort. The theory says to divorce the discomfort. So if you are not able to divorce or to destroy the discomfort, you are the super duper failure. In spite of you are accepting the change, you are accepting the discomfort, you are not finding out the source of discomfort. That is the main thing. The same thing arises, and NEP also says the same thing. Find out the root cause of the discomfort. Why the students are not independent learner? Why they are depending on you? Why they are depending on curriculum? Why they are depending on books? Why they are depending on subject? Why they are not learning by their mistakes? Why they are not learning by their experiences? Because we are not welcoming the blunders. If we started welcoming the blunders, we will learn by our mistake. But at the same time, we have to switch over, not to allow the same mistake happen again. New mistake is most welcome. But the same mistake, what is happening in that boiling frog? Same mistake, okay, adjust, not required. So to destroy the discomfort, to destroy that change, which is creating discomfort for you, you have to create that change which is constant. And again, for that, you have to drive the change instead of getting driven by the change. So that is my input on that. सीढ़ियां उन्हें मुबारक जिन्हें छतों पर है जाना, जिनकी मंजिल है आसमां, उन्हें अपना रास्ता खुद ही होता है बनाना, खुद ही होता है बनाना. So that frog has to choose that way, which will destroy his discomfort, make him experiential learner, force him to take the proper decision, ensure that his feasible and flexible tasks are not going beyond, using the mixed mindset, keep on driving the change, not to be driven by the change. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. If I can come to Rashmi Singh, ma'am, next. Ma'am? Yes. Ma'am, you can deliberate on the topic and particularly from a student's point of view.
You're
Ma'am, you're
muted,
not
ma'am.
audible. Yes, you're muted, right.
I'm sorry. Good evening once again to all my panel members. Good evening, Gaguri.
Good evening,
And
ma'am.
yes, I'm happy to join this session. It's a great session. This topic is very, very specific in terms of the different aspect as discussed by the panel members. My purview with respect to this topic will be slightly different. I would start by giving being physicist, there's this famous law we have, we call it as law of inertia, which says that whether it is a material object or a living object, they always have a tendency to resist change. So when we talk about this frog in boiling water, the frog goes into its comfort zone, and then the concept of inertia, which resists, which makes him resistant to any kind of change. He's already gone into his comfort zone, and now to get out of it, it is the law which is prohibiting him, the law of inertia. However, as very rightly pointed out by some of the panel members, the inability to take the correct decision with respect to the gradual changes and in the scope of the time and place is the most important factor when we discuss about the frog in the boiling water story. I remember one such story I had read, which I can relate to this particular example. We had heard about China, way in the period of Mao, the president during that time, somewhere in 1858. So he had ordered, he felt that the sparrows in China are eating a lot of grain. So let the sparrows be killed. And he ordered that all the sparrows all across the country should be killed. And whoever kills more number of sparrows will be suitably rewarded. And Chinese, they started killing the sparrow. With the gradual stage of the sparrows being killed, it was noticed gradually that the sparrows did not just eat the grains, but they also ate the locusts, the insects, which actually damaged the crops more than the sparrows. And then as the frog went into the boiling water, couldn't save himself or in the boiling water, the Chinese, they couldn't save themselves from the big disaster of drought they had faced, and many Chinese residents, they got killed due to starvation because the entire food grains were eaten up by the locust and the pest insect, which otherwise could have the situation could have been saved if the sparrows were there. So this, I feel, is one of the the classic relation which we can give as an example when we talk about frog boiling story. The another aspect which is already prevailing, and it's not an individual problem or a problem of a particular society, but it's the problem with respect to globe, which is the greenhouse effect. We have the greenhouse gases trapped in our environment, the carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. And when they are not able to release outside the Earth's atmosphere, why should we be surprised that the temperature is rising gradually year by year and the globe is warming? And as a result, of course, the glaciers melting and so many bacteria that are into their dormant stage, they would slowly be alive. And the kind of pandemic was just an example, COVID, which was probably man-made or it was a natural disaster. But yes, those bacteria which are hidden in glaciers in the dormant stage, once the glacier starts melting, the viruses and the bacteria, what havoc it would create. So we are still in a process where the water is still on a gradual rise of its boil. We need to really jump. We need to make decision of where to stop with respect to this global warming. So this was the second aspect that came into my mind. The third aspect is we as educationists, are we seeing the gradual creep of the frustrations, the gradual creep of the different unpleasant changes that are now taking place with respect to our youngsters, the kind of mindset which we expect them to be with, and the kind of mindset which they are now, when we notice them in class, when we notice their behavior, when we notice their lifestyle. Are we noticing that some things big are going to come in future? With respect to these children, they are exposed to so much of data, so much of information, which may not be useful to them, but yes, it is bringing a gradual unpleasant changes in their behavior patterns, their food habit. The children are made to eat food in a timely manner, but are they hungry? Are they hungry? So these aspects slowly, as Achin sir was talking about, the junk food and the health issues, of course, these are the aspects which are unnoticed, the pollution that has come into the environment. What are we waiting for? We are waiting for the PILs to be registered by the Bar Council, or are we really going to act on an individual and at a social level where such information, of course, being educationist, it should be percolated right from the school. And yes, another example I would like to make it is way in the year 2020, when the pandemic just started in China, we were all very happy. Okay, it's in China, not anywhere else. And when it started, all across the globe, it was a similar simulation with the frog in boiling water story. We then realized, oh, yes, it is something where we are very late to react. Yet another example in China, we see while the entire globe had its defense system very successfully implemented with respect to combating the COVID, the China still had its battle with COVID even just 6 months back. There was a sudden surge in the cases where it failed to realize that the herd immunity with respect to COVID is very important. So this is about realizing the correct time to decide what is needed in a timely manner. So I feel these are few examples which are way to close aspects relating to the frog in the boiling water story. However, one last example I would also like to quote. We know till the year 1980, we had the two most important states, which were the successful states, the Maharashtra and Gujarat, as one of the industrial states and a lot of employment opportunities and job opportunities. What was the reason? Why only these two states? Why not the entire states of India, which is not the situation now? Here, the governance, as somebody was also pointing out about, we fail to realize that it is the differences in the taxation system of different states. The same commodity, when sold in different countries with the different tax rates, it's going to have its impact with respect to the production, industry, and employment opportunities. So, however, I'm glad that these aspects are very well dealt with the GST introduced all across India. So, Gagori, with these examples, I wanted to relate how this frog in the boiling water prevails so much in our lives, and how the timely decision really will help to take up the rightful
That's
action.
what Vidhukesh sir also mentioned, that we have to just act for the time is like not gone. The timely action is required. We next come to Sapna Sankla. Ma'am, I'm so sorry to keep you waiting. And thank you so much for being here in the panel. Very good evening. And if you can start with the delegation.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gagori. Am I audible to you?
Absolutely, ma'am.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to really apologize for a very bad throat I have from last 3 days. I do have a throat infection, but I'll try to do the justice, right? Okay. So a very pleasant and happy evening to everyone. It was such a great pleasure listening to the other panelists and also Mr. Philip, who started with the session on this beautiful and very, very relevant topic. In fact, first of all, I would really like to appreciate and congratulate Notebook for having selected such a beautiful and burning topic, which is a buzzword now, because when it comes to the metaphor of boiling frog syndrome, it can very well be applied to the area of education and very much be applied to the present scenario, the way things are being transformed when it comes to education, when it comes to teaching methodologies, when it comes to pedagogies, definitely. Now, one important thing I would like to begin with is there's nothing permanent as change, and change is always inevitable. So what do? We have to accept changes. And the boiling frog is a very classy example to understand that if we are not prepared for changes, if we are not equipped to handle changes, then our situation also would be like the boiling frog, where the boiling frog is cooked to death, because without analyzing, without understanding what are the changes happening, without really getting ourselves into that and understanding, without having that awareness that, yeah, anytime changes can happen, we would really not be in a position to face those challenges and those changes. So I feel, as one of the panelists had pointed out, one of the most important quality which can prepare ourselves, not only ourselves, even our students, our children, to accept and also to follow and to face the changes is resilience. I feel building resilience in our students is actually required in the present condition, because if we are not going to understand the gradual changes which are happening with us, we won't be able to face them. You know, I can relate a number of examples to this, pertaining to behavior, pertaining to academic excellence, pertaining to the mental health of the students, pertaining to the health of the students. Everywhere, if we are not able to detect those very small gradual changes which are happening, we would be faced with something which we really cannot handle that. So it's very important that we are always aware, we are always conscious of the fact that yes, things are going to change, and we should be always ready to prepare when it comes to changes. Quoting a very simple example from a daily classroom scene, you know what happens is, in the formative years, some of the students, they don't learn the basic skills, the fundamental skills, and it goes on going gradually, it goes on, and by the time the child reaches into a class where he has to face or she has to face the board exam, suddenly, you know, there is a sort of disaster, because at that point of time, we cannot do anything. So from the beginning, whatever it is, whether it is in the field of any subjects, whether it is the scholastic areas or the post-scholastic areas, if we start preparing our children to face such challenges, I think change is not going to be so difficult. And the same applies to our teachers. Yes, this is one area where, you know, the role of a teacher has been changing. There's a paradigm shift. And as rightly pointed out by one of the panelists, yes, definitely the scaffolding by the teachers actually makes a great difference. And it would help our students to accept and manage the changes, and they won't fail at the time when they're really supposed to act, when they're supposed to actually face the challenges and come out of it successfully. And that's where resilience comes in. So it's not about just facing challenges, facing changes. It's also about how do we actually face those challenges and come out of it successfully. And I feel, yes, the mindset does matter a lot. The mindset, you know, a fixed or a growth mindset, as pointed out by one of the panelists, it does make a very big difference. And pertaining to that, I would like to say the best way to actually avoid this problem, or the best way to face this problem, is building a culture for change. There are so many models existing here. One of the very common models of building a culture for change is the ADKAR model. Now, what do we do in the ADKAR model? Let me just describe it. A is for awareness. So building an awareness for change, that is the first step. Then comes the D. What is D? Creating a desire to participate and support the change. That is the D. Then comes the K, which means we should develop knowledge as to face the changes so that we can build in those requisite skills and the behavior modification that are required. That is the K. Then comes the A, which means fostering the ability to implement the change, right? And that is very much required. Then comes R, it is providing reinforcement to sustain the change. It is easy for us to change, but sustaining the change is very, very difficult. And if we build a culture for change, not only into our students, but also teachers and all of us as adults are there to accept that, it becomes very easy. And then we would definitely not be cooked to death, just like the frog who really did not understand the impending danger and was very comfortable in the comfort zone and could not act when it was required because the time has passed, the phase has gone, and it is time that we act. And we have to act now. The time to act is not in the future, it is to act now. And if we can really do it successfully, then I think it won't be a catastrophe, it won't be a disaster, and we can easily pass through those phase of changes and we emerge out of it very, very successfully. We don't have to worry about it. So certain qualities to be developed in us, like building a culture for change, resilience, and all those advanced life skills which are required in us. We are talking about the 21st century skills, but yes, when it comes to the life skills in the 21st century, we need to look at those life skills which are required for our children, and those should be inculcated, those should be instilled in our students, right? We are talking about the 4 C's. The 4 C's, the creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking. Yes, these skills would make our children more resilient, and they would have a very high level of AQ, because if they possess a high level of AQ, they can face any challenges, they can face any changes, and they would definitely emerge out to be successful. So we as educators, we really have a very important work. We have a high onus on us to accept this and make our children prepared. The preparedness is what is very much required. So the 4 C's, what we are talking about, are very much required. Coming to the 3 L's, when we talk about the 21st century skills, the 3 L's, the learning skills, the literacy skills, and the life skills. So under literacy skills, we talk about IMT, that is information literacy, media literacy, and technology literacy. I think we are living in a world of technology. And if we do not educate our students into these 3 skills, they would definitely lag behind. They won't be able to handle the changes, and we have to make them. So when I talk about information literacy, as Rashmi ma'am had mentioned in her talk, information literacy, yes, we are living in a world of information overload, and information is available not with just a click, but even with a touch. And if we do not educate our students to validate information, to evaluate information, they would be caught into the trap and they would drown in the ocean of information. So it's very important that we educate our students about information literacy. Then comes media literacy. Yes, we all know the impending and the existing dangers of social media. If we do not educate our students into handling the social media in the right way, they may get trapped. We have come across many such instances where students have gone to take an extreme step or a drastic step because they were not able to understand and they were not educated. So media literacy is very much required. And of course, the pandemic has taught us what technology literacy is all about. So I need not talk more about it. So these skills, if we inculcate in our students, definitely our student would not face the same situation as was faced by the boiling frog. And that's what I would like to say. All these type of the literacy skills to be inculcated into the students. And when we come to the the last L, the life skills, we talk about the flips. Now, what is this flips we are talking about, right? So if we do not make our children future ready, they will find it very, very difficult. So we need to look at the leadership skills. We need to look at the productivity. We need to look at the initiative. We need to look at the adaptability of the students. And if all these skills are developed in our students, they would be very, very comfortable to face these changes. And I know they can definitely come out of the comfort zone, because growth begins at the end of the comfort zone. It does not begin in the comfort zone, but at the end of it. And then they would be able to face all the challenges the way we want them to, and they would flourish in their life. And I think this is a greater responsibility for all of us. I would like to close with a closing thought. Life is about change. Sometimes it's painful, sometimes it's beautiful, but sometimes it's both. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for those wonderful deliberations. We are just running short of time, and I close the panel here, thanking Pramod sir, Vidhukesh sir, Sapna ma'am, and Rashmi ma'am, and would want to have a founder CEO, Achin Bhattacharyya, for the closing notes, please.
Thank you, Gauri. I think a wonderful session. Burrett sir,
Absolutely.
thank you as always for giving us a great start, and also for mentioning some very important aspect. Very balanced overview, undoubtedly. Set the tone for the evening. Vidhukesh, Vimal sir, thank you so much. I think some very relevant points you made, including I think the fact that time remains relevant. I think that's the crux. And also example about Dhoni's decision. We all couldn't agree more. Dr. Mahajan, thank you so much. I think very nicely you summed it up by saying it's important to drive the change and not get driven by change. I completely agree with you on that. Rashmi Singh, ma'am, I think two wonderful things you mentioned, ma'am. One was, of course, law of inertia. And second, the very unfortunate incident and the catastrophic consequences of what happened in China, killing of sparrows, and eventual drought. So I think definitely food for thought. I'm sure for all our viewers today evening as well. Again, Sapna ma'am, thank you so much. I think you touched upon a very important aspect of building resilience, which again is at the core of this entire topic, which gives us the strength. So I think it was wonderful, seamless discussion today evening. And I'm sure members of our esteemed audience also found it extremely value-adding. I thank all of you for your time here today, and I look forward to your continued support and patronage in the days to come. Thank you, take care, and goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you
again.
very much,
Thank you very
Achin.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Have a
sir.
nice evening. Take
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
You too. You too. Thank you.